I've been telling you about all the receivers and running backs that I love, but I'm going to go back to the receivers and tell you about the ones I hate. It's me, Jagger May, and these are 5 receivers I'm not drafting, even if there's a fire. First one, it's the golden boy of his draft class, Malik Nabers of the New York Giants. I've been fading the New York Giants, and it all comes down to Matt Nagy, John Harbaugh, and Greg Roman. I'm not saying that John Harbaugh is going to be a bad head coach, but I think that's a nightmare blunt rotation that's around Malik Nabers right now. And I know Jackson Dart, pretty solid. Cam Scatterbo, pretty solid. Offensive line, much better than it has been, still needs some improvement. But when everyone has been recovering from injuries with the exception of Jackson Dart, and you have failed offensive coordinators that have put out some of the worst offenses that we've ever seen, I think there should be a little bit of concern, particularly with Nabers. Now, there has been some good camp hype up to this point saying that he's running, he's cutting, whatever, but I need to see it and I need to see him on the field. That's why at his current cost, going at the 310, I would rather have someone else as my wide receiver. I'd rather just take A.J. Brown earlier. I'd rather have George Pickens earlier. I would rather just wait and get another wide receiver, let's say Luther Burden or Rome Odunze, something like that, if I'm going to take a risk, because I think the risk of some of these other guys is just as high as Malik Nabers, and I'm going to be honest, I think their upside is just as high. So if I'm going to be paying that cost, I would just rather have a different wide receiver later. Next, it's Jameson Williams. For 2 straight seasons, he's had basically the same numbers. He's been very consistent. He's been very solid. So right now, at his current cost at $504, I understand why people are drafting him. Hear me out though. What if we've seen his ceiling? Now we have new offensive coordinator Drew Petzing. We've all heard what he said about Marvin Harrison Jr. Now I know he hasn't had the greatest camp news after day 2. I'm not going to get overly excited or worried either way, but he doesn't really know how to use an X properly. He likes to flex them out on the left side of the field and leave them there, not move them around the field. When you see someone like Jameson Williams, get ready to learn sacrificial X, buddy, because if anything, the usage went to Trey McBride, and I'm not saying that just because Trey McBride had these numbers that Sam Laporta is going to put up those same numbers, but Sam Laporta is a good tight end, and I do think you could see an uptick in his usage. Amon-Ra St. Brown, very good wide receiver. When you apply that to Jameson Williams and what Drew Petzing does, I think he gets hit with the ugly stick, and he's running clear out routes from everyone else. I would just rather have Terry McLaurin, or again, I bring up Rome Odunze if I'm going to be chasing someone who might be a wide receiver too with a lot of upside. I also would like the offensive coordinator who made the Lions good to begin with, in Ben Johnson. Now they have Caleb Williams. Now they have a much better offensive line. I think that we've only seen the beginning for Rome Odunze and Luther Burden, and right now Terry McLaurin is so cheap, and that's only contingent because him and Jane Daniels weren't on the field together a lot last season. That's a discount I'd rather have instead of paying up for Jameson Williams. That is an easy fade in my book. And before I give you my other 3, make sure to hit the like, subscribe, and if you're on your mobile device, the hype really does help. It's a brand new, fresh channel. RotoWire has let me go out on my own and give you all the type of content that I want to do. So if you guys have any requests, please put those in the comments. We're going to be doing a lot of Dynasty and redraft with videos just like this. And then we're even going to mix in some best balls. More importantly, we have our app that is relaunching. We have all the things that you need to dominate your league. That's our draft kit. That's our mock draft simulator. That's our draft assistant. All that's loaded back up into the app and ready for you to go. So you can use my code on the screen, JAG20 at checkout. Now, I've paid the bills. Let's get back into it with my 3rd wide receiver I'm not touching. It's Michael Wilson. I brought up Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Wilson is doing fine in camp. I still don't think that's a reason to overdraft him. And let's just put it this way. Is the wide receiver 1 in this offense even good? It's not a debate if it's Marvin Harrison Jr. or if it's Michael Wilson. It's just that can Carson Beck and Jacoby Brissett do something in a rebuilding year when they don't have a quarterback? That's the real question. But let's face the facts. Look at this chart. Try not to cry. When Marvin Harrison Jr. was out on the field, they tried to get him the ball. It really did split up the distribution of targets. When he wasn't on the field, obviously they were funneling the ball to Michael Wilson and to Trey McBride. Regardless of what you believe on Marvin Harrison Jr., if he's a wide receiver 2 or not, he's still a wide receiver that's going to take away targets, and Michael Wilson probably isn't good enough to be, let's say, a Nico Collins, if that's what we're thinking. He's going to make that type of trajectory. He's a risk at cost. Take a flyer on Mekhi Lemon, or Wan'Dale Robinson is safe much later. These guys are basically the same upside that Michael Wilson is going to give you in a poor offense, and again, a lot cheaper. Next, Michael Pittman of the Steelers. I've been a Michael Pittman stan when he was a Colt. He was a wide receiver 1, eating lots of targets. Now he finds himself in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would have loved that last year, but now they get Jeremy Bernard in. They already had DK Metcalf. Where does that leave Michael Pittman in a pecking order where Aaron Rodgers is playing his swan song? We haven't seen good football from Aaron Rodgers in a long time. So people saying, well, it's because Aaron Rodgers hasn't done this or that. Fair, I get it. They haven't had the targets like Michael Pittman. They haven't had a Jeremy Bernard, but now they do, and they still have DK Metcalf. I know I've already repeated that, but I feel like I need to shout it from the rooftops because he's an obvious trap. Now I know you're getting him at the 808. That's not a huge risk considering that, he's your wide receiver 3 or 4. You still can chase better upside at that ADP. I brought up Quentin Johnston in my last video and I'm bringing it up now. He's someone who's in, I think, a much better offense with a much better offensive coordinator, with a much better quarterback, and that is why I think he has much more upside. Even if it's not going to look as pretty, even if you look at them as talents at wide receiver, Michael Pittman, probably the better player. At the end of the day, I like what Quentin Johnston does, and I like that he's in an offense with an offensive coordinator who knows how to use his body type. Michael Pittman is trying to rebound with 2 dudes who are trying to run it back to their glory days. I just don't believe in Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe in Steelers head coach Mike McCarthy. It feels like he's at best going to be an incredibly low ADOT player or maybe just a PPR gem in the flex, and I'd rather have someone like Josh Downs or Quentin Johnston who I think can take that next step and actually beat their ADP. Last but not least, Xavier Worthy. The fastest 40 in the combine, and it absolutely has not mattered, even when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league attached to one of the best offensive minds. I would say that his value is if anything would happen to Rashee Rice, but even me, the Rashee Rice hater, knows that he's going to be out on the field. And let's face the facts. Worthy hasn't gotten it done when Rashee Rice wasn't there to begin with. So now, what do we expect? We expect him to run more. Travis Kelce is still going to be out there getting targets. I know that Rashee Rice is going to command targets. Kenneth Walker, good running back. He's going to get targets as well. That leaves Xavier Worthy fighting with Tyquan Thornton, who has been a better Xavier Worthy than he has. If anyone has given us anything close to what Tyreek Hill was, it's Tyquan Thornton. And I'm not saying that it's close. I'm just saying it's closer than what Worthy is giving us. I don't understand why we're even drafting him at the 1101, because to me, there's not a lot of difference between Worthy and MVS when you're taking him over someone like Casey Concepcion, who could be the wide receiver 1 on his own team, and Jalen Coker at the 1112. Granted, Coker, he's probably going to raise up in value if we know that Chris Brazzell is going to be injured for longer than 8 weeks. And 8 weeks is a long time, so it's going to jump up. But while the getting's still good, I'd rather have these other 2 guys who may have consistent roles in their offense and may consistently get targets that lead to touchdowns rather than waiting on the 1 or 2 Worthy big games. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Those are the 5 wide receivers you couldn't ask me to draft even if there's a fire. It's me, Jagger May, and you just watched a fantasy show. Make sure to hit the like, subscribe. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.